General's office, you can proceed.
Morning, PS, with your team. I'm Emmanuel Tembo. I'm the acting deputy auditor general in charge of audits. Chair, I'm accompanied by Mr. Donfrey Handongwe, who is the assistant director. Beatrice Mayea, senior auditor, Anderson Metwa, senior auditor, and Simon Mnyama, who is the senior planner.
Thank you, Accountant General's office, you can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, PS and your team. My name is Joseph Mutimushi. I'm acting chief accountant from Office of the Accountant General. I'm accompanied by Mr. Oscar Nyirenda, accountant. Thank you.
Thank you, the Controller's office, you can proceed.
Morning, Chair. Morning, honorable members of the committee. Morning, PS and team. My name is Mumbu Patrick, acting director under the Office of Control of Internal Audit, Ministry of Finance. Thanks.
Thank you, parliamentary staff, we can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. My name is Priska M. Shimalungwe, and I'm from the Office of the Clerk. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Beverly Nzala from the Office of the Clerk.
Thank you. Media can proceed.
Morning, Chair. My name is Muchana Remba from this ticket.
Thank you, PS. I'm Warren C. Mwambazi, Member of Parliament for Bwanamkuba constituency, and I'm the chairperson of this committee. PS, I will welcome you to introduce your team. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, honorable members of Parliament. My name is Patrick Mcheleka, Permanent Secretary, Minister of Lands and Natural Resources. I'm also accompanied by the Commissioner of Lands, Mr. Shadrack Mbewe, on my left. I'm also accompanied by the Director of Lands, Mr. Crispin Chaiwa. With your permission, Chair, my other colleagues are on the other side. Let me invite them to introduce themselves. With your permission, Chair.
Thank you. We can proceed.
Chair and the honorable members of the committee, good morning. My name is Charles Pore, Surveyor General.
Good morning, Chair and honorable members. My name is David Kajokoto, Chief Internal Auditor.
And good morning, Chair and honorable members. My name is Frederick Liemisa, Acting Director ICT. Thank you.
On my left there.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Agatha Banda. I'm the Chief Registrar in the Ministry.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, honorable members. My name is Emmanuel Tembo, the project manager for the National Land Titling Program.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mtwalo Jere. I'm acting head estates and valuation.
Honorable Chair, honorable members of Parliament, I also have my colleagues at the back there.
Please, you can
introduce yourselves.
Can introduce yourselves. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning.
Thank you for the introductions, PS and your team. Let me comply with immunity in accordance with Cap 12 of the laws of Zambia, which gives you immunity as you make submission before this honorable committee. And also let me make mention, PS, that the same law protects members as they interrogate your ministry. PS, I hope and trust you've come with competent people who will help you answer some of the queries which have been highlighted by the Office of the Auditor General in the Auditor General's report for the financial year ending 31st December 2024. PS, with that said, let me ask you to proceed and make submission.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members of Parliament. I'll proceed to read our submission, and at the end of my submission, as you have noted, Chair, I'm accompanied by my colleagues from the ministry who may be able to help me respond to some of the issues, questions, areas of clarifications as you might raise, Honorable Chair. With your permission, let me proceed. Honorable Chair, reference is made to minute number National Assembly /11/16/12 dated 21st October 2025 regarding matters that are reported in the Auditor General's report for the financial year ended 31st December 2024. I wish to comment as follows. Honorable Chair, on paragraph 15 of the report, 15.2, budget and actual collections. In the estimates of revenue and expenditure for the financial year ended 31st December 2024, a total provision of 394,734,000 was made against which amounts totaling 331 million were collected, resulting in under collection of well over 63 million, as the table below will show. My response, Chair, to the observation by the Auditor General's office. The observation by the Auditor General regarding the underperformance on most of the revenue stream is acknowledged. The cause of query. I wish to report to the committee that the query arose as a result of failure by the ministry to meet the revenue targets on all revenue streams other than documentation and registration fees as provided for in the estimates of revenue and expenditure for the financial year ended 31st December 2024. The committee may wish to note that most revenue transactions under the ministry are client-driven and lodged at the instance of clients, such as consideration, preparation and survey fees. Therefore, the failure is attributed to the fact that the ministry cannot compel clients to pay for land-related services. With regards to ground rent, the ministry does not have enforcement tools to compel clients to pay other than penalty charges on the outstanding ground rent at the end of the year. Action taken or remedial action. Honorable Chair, honorable members of Parliament, I wish to report to the committee that the ministry has continued to undertake several measures with the sole purpose of sensitizing the property owners on notification of bills. Further, as regards ground rent, the ministry has undertaken the following: ensuring that all properties are billed on 1st January to allow property owners ample time to settle their bills. Targeted distribution of bills to property owners with high value and multiple properties. Mandatory payment of outstanding ground rent fees before any secondary transactions are done on the property. Further, the ministry is in the process of strengthening the Lands Act so that enforcement is enhanced. 15.3 Audit findings. A. Audit performance information. Roman numeral 1. Failure to attain output targets. Honorable Chair, honorable members of Parliament, Section 47(1) of the National Planning and Budgeting Act number 1 of 2020 states that for the attainment of output targets set out in the estimates of revenue and expenditure falling under the controlling mandate. Contrary to the Act, the Ministry did not attain targets for the Land Administration and Titling Program as indicated in Table 2 below. The figures are there, Honorable Chair. With your permission, you may look at the table and take note of those figures. On our response, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members of Parliament, the observation by Auditor General regarding failure to attain output target is acknowledged. Cause of query. I wish to report to the committee that the query arose due to the fact that the registration of properties through registration of documents and the issuance of certificates of title under sporadic titling is client-driven. Using this method, the Ministry registers documents and issues the certificates of title as and when clients make applications. As such, a reduction in the number of applications submitted with the Ministry affects the number of documents registered and titles issued. As regards the issuance of certificates of title under systematic titling, the failure to meet the target is attributed to the non-payment of consideration fees by property owners, which is a requirement for the issuance of the certificates of title. I further wish to report that under systematic titling, under the systematic titling, National Land Titling Program, the query arose due to the unrealistic original set target of 250,000 certificates of title. Given the pattern of payments and the number of properties available to the National Land Titling Program, the target was revised to 20,000 in 2024. The Ministry still recognizes that the actual number of certificate of titles fell short of the target because of landowners not paying the minimum amount required to produce a title. Honorable Chair, Honorable Members of Parliament, action taken, remedial action. The Ministry by conducting outreach and engagement activities with local communities and targeted by sensitizing the public benefits of having properties registered and obtaining certificates of title. The sensitization campaigns to enhance awareness and uptake of title included activities such as roadshows, radio programs, participation in public awareness programs such as Public Service Day, Trade Fair and the Agriculture Show. The goal is to encourage people to make applications for issuance of certificates of title, pay consideration fees and increase awareness about the importance of land registration. As regards the National Land Titling Program, the number of titles issued is dependent on the number of clients who pay the minimum amount required to produce the title. The focus by the Ministry, therefore, is to continue sensitizing communities on the need to pay for the titles. The Ministry is currently working with the councils to provide demarcation areas where titles need to be issued. Roman numeral 2, failure to carry out survey works. Part 9.0 1, 2 and 3 of the Customer Service Charter states that the Ministry shall carry out survey works for all properties, stands, lots and farms within 21 days from receipt of request and prerequisite documents or 18 days from the date of client making payments for the service. However, a scrutiny of records revealed that survey works for 17 properties in six districts whose services were paid for in amounts totaling 105,800 had not been carried out for periods ranging from 4 to 16 months as at 31st August 2025. Our response, Chair, the observation by the Auditor General regarding failure to carry out survey works is acknowledged. Honorable Chair, honorable members of Parliament, I wish to report to the committee that the query arose primarily due to unresolved land disputes that hindered the finalization of surveys for the affected properties. In several instances, the properties were found to be partially or wholly occupied by individuals who claimed to have been allocated the same land by the local authorities or needed replanning. Honorable Chair, honorable members of Parliament, action taken or remedial action. The Ministry had engaged and continues to engage the affected parties and relevant local authorities to resolve these disputes with a view to either replan the affected areas or offer alternative land. Where disputes have been successfully resolved, surveys have been completed and sub-diagrams produced. Out of the 17 cases identified, 8 have been resolved, while 9 remain outstanding. Copies of the approved sub-diagrams for the resolved cases are available for audit verification. Honorable Chair, you may refer to Appendix 1. Honorable Chair B, Medici Land Governance Contract. In the report of the Auditor General on the accounts of the Republic of Zambia for the financial year ended 31st December 2023, mention was made that on 18th August 2020, the Ministry awarded a contract to Medici Land Governance under the National Titling Program for issuing of 4 million certificates of title at a financing cost of $22,954,000 payable from the fees collected from the issuance of certificates of title for a duration of 10 years. As at 31st December 2024, a total of 121,578 certificates of title had been issued, from which revenues in amounts totaling 164,668,906 had been collected under the contract. The following were observed. Outstanding revenue arrears. Section 11(1)(m) of the Public Finance Management Act number 1 of 2018 provides that a controlling officer is responsible for planning and controlling of revenue collection and expenditure of public funds appropriated under the controlling officer's control, including taking effective and appropriate steps to collect revenues due to the head of revenue and expenditure under their charge as appropriate. Fees paid, consideration fees, registration fees, preparation fees, ground rent, out of which the minimum fees were payable for one to be issued with a certificate of title, with the balance of fees being the responsibility of the Ministry to collect. However, a review of the records revealed that outstanding revenue arrears totaling 177 million kwacha had not been collected for a period of 14 months from 1st March 2024 to 30th April 2025. Honorable Chair, the details are contained in Table 3, which is before you, Honorable Chair, honorable members of Parliament. Our response. The observation by the Auditor General regarding failure to collect outstanding revenue arrears is acknowledged. Cause of the query. The outstanding revenue arrears is as a result of no enforcement mechanisms to compel applicants to pay. You may further wish to note that the affected properties were regularizations of already developed informal settlements, mainly in improvement areas. Action taken, or remedial action. I wish to report, Honorable Chair and members of Parliament, that my ministry has continued to sensitize property owners to pay outstanding consideration fees. Further, there is a caveat restricting secondary transactions on properties with outstanding fees. In addition, the ministry seeks to amend the Land Act to include enforcement mechanisms so as to enhance the collection of revenue. Failure to meet contract deliverables. Article 4.1.1 of the contract provided for the creation of 4 million titles, broken down as follows: 1,500,000 certificates of title within 3 years. 2.5 million certificates of title within 4 years. However, from the commencement of the project, only 121,000 certificates of title had been issued, representing 3% of the targeted 4 million. See the table below, Chair. Chair, the table is before you and it contains the details. On the table, there is an enumeration that was completed amounting to 363,000 properties. Verification completed 297,000 properties. Total offer letters issued 220,000. Total titles issued 121,578. As at 30 December 2024, 164 million 6 had been collected under the contract. Our response, Chair. The observation made by the Auditor General regarding failure to meet contract deliverables is acknowledged. Cause of query. I wish to report to the committee that the query arose due to the unrealistic target set of 4 million titles, which were envisaged to be issued over the 7-year period in the contract. In addition, the following challenges have further affected the number of titles issued under the program. Several properties on the Copper Belt are sitting on ZCCM land. Failure to pay the minimum titling fees by landowners. Some properties do not proceed to approval stage because the documentation of ownership, which is presented by the landholders, does not meet the legal requirements as required by the Commission of Lands. Encumbrances due to legacy titles. A lot of properties are sitting on old titles which require to be cancelled following the due process of the law. Most properties, especially those in Ndola and Kitwe, are already on council titles or occupancy licenses. This has caused a reduction on the number of expected titles on the Copper Belt. Action taken, or remedial action, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members of Parliament. I wish to report that my ministry is negotiating with Medici to amend the contract and revise the target. The ministry continues to carry out sensitization to the communities where offer letters have been distributed. Further, my ministry has engaged councils to help create a system to allow for documentation allowable for first registration, and is also seeking modalities to cancel, re-enter or expire a title within the confines of the existing laws. Honorable Chair, C. Irregularities in the administration of ground rent. Statutory instrument number 110 of 2009 of the Lands Act states that in order for properties on land database to accrue ground rent, each property should have a land size in the system for the changes to be accrued and owners billed accordingly. As such, the Ministry's computation of ground rent was based on 3 parameters, namely land size, land location, and land type, that is lot, farm, stand, etc., etc. The Ministry was required to issue out annual ground rent bills for all the properties. The following were observed. Outstanding ground rent. A review of the ground rent statement revealed that the Ministry had ground rent receivables from 497,000 properties in amounts totaling 1.3 billion in unpaid ground rent, which had been outstanding for periods ranging from 1 year to over 10 years. Despite the Ministry undertaking outreach programs to sensitize residents on the importance of paying ground rent, no measures were put in place to compel the clients to pay as required. Our response, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members of Parliament, the observation by the Auditor General regarding failure to collect outstanding revenue arrears is acknowledged. Cause of query. I wish to report to the committee that the query arose due to errors in the bidding amounts which resulted from properties having been migrated wrongly as hectares instead of square meters, as such resulting in overbilling. In addition, the current legislation governing the administration of ground rent does not empower the Ministry to impose sanctions on defaulters. The only provision available under the existing law is the possibility of repossessing a property for non-payment of ground rent and the penalty of 25% imposed on defaulters. Action taken, remedial action. Honorable Chair, Honorable Members of Parliament, the Ministry has continued to distribute invoices to property owners who are still owing in ground rent and has engaged several companies through meetings to come up with debt repayment plans before 31st December 2025. Further, the Ministry has continued with sensitization programs through radio programs and road shows, reminding clients to make payments in relation to ground rent, and has highlighted the implications of non-compliance to payment of ground rent. My ministry has also embarked on a comprehensive data validation and cleaning exercise to correct the wrongly migrated data so as to reflect the correct position, and this exercise is currently ongoing, Chair. Honourable members of the Public Accounts Committee. Failure to bill appropriate ground rent due to missing land area size. As at 31st December 2024, the Ministry had 1.1 million properties on the system, out of which 443,000 did not have land size specified or had negative size indicated on the system. This resulted in non-computation of ground rent for the cited properties, leading to an estimated loss of revenue in amounts totaling $10,064,000 based on the minimum ground rent fee of 41 kwacha. Our response, Chair. The observation by the Auditor General regarding failure to bill appropriate ground rent due to missing land size is acknowledged. Cause of query. I wish to report to the committee that the query arose due to limitations in the legacy land information system, that is LIMS and ZOMIS, which did not require land size as a mandatory field during property creation. This led to omission errors, resulting in 443,000 properties being recorded without land area sizes, where properties were created without land sizes. However, the majority of these properties remain unallocated and are therefore not subject to ground rent payments. For properties where land sizes were missing, the correct sizes are captured at the point of land allocation. Additionally, the process of properties with negative error size is attributed to system errors, as it is not technically possible to have negative land sizes. Action taken, remedial action. My ministry has migrated to the new land information system, ZILAS, which mandates the entry of land area size during property creation. This measure effectively prevents the recurrence of creating property records with missing land sizes. To address legacy data gaps, my ministry has initiated a data cleaning exercise targeting old records with missing land sizes. Over 1,500 records have already been cleaned. Furthermore, a comprehensive data cleaning strategy is being developed in collaboration with the EU-supported Land Governance Project. A pilot exercise will be conducted for properties in Samba district, and upon successful validation, the process will be scaled up nationally to cover all affected records. In addition, the affected records with negative land sizes have been reviewed and corrected to reflect accurate values. Failure to reclaim expired invitation to treat, ITTs. According to the Ministry of Lands procedure for issuance of offer letters, an applicant should tender in an application which is created on the system. Upon application approval by the Commission of Lands, the fees as outlined in the invitation to treat issued to the client and become payable within a period of 90 days from issuance. Not honored within the stipulated 90 days period should expire and be available for reissuance. During the period under review, 3,296 ITTs issued on the system expired due to non-payment of required fees after the period of 90 days. And as at 31st August, sorry Chair, apologies, should read 31st August 2024, they had not been reissued. Honorable Chair, honorable members of the Public Accounts Committee, our response. The observation by the Auditor General regarding failure to reclaim expired invitation to treat is acknowledged. Cause of query. I wish to report to the committee that the query arose due to applicants' failure to pay, which stems from several factors, such as the new ZILAS system not allowing partial payments for applicants that are unable to pay the full amounts at once, and challenges in digital notification system, such as not receiving email notifications to inform them of the issued invitation to treat. Additionally, certain properties on the schedule belong to various government institutions which cannot be reclaimed. Furthermore, the schedule includes properties that have undergone the process of conversion from customary to leasehold tenure. Thus, the applicants for these properties are the ones who have obtained consent from the chief, making repossession a challenge. I further wish to report that other properties on the schedule are in resettlement schemes, which are a direct recommendation from the Office of the Vice President. Reclaiming such properties must be affected by the Office of the Vice President, Department of Resettlement Schemes Office. Action taken. Out of the 3,296 invitations to treat, 1,300 are changed status, with some properties having been reclaimed by the Office of the Commission of Lands, while others have been paid for and are at various stages of processing, with some already completed and issued a certificate of title. I further wish to report that recession should follow dialogue and adhere to the principles of natural justice, which requires affording affected parties the right to be heard, failure to which it could result in negative public perception and adverse publicity. The Ministry will continue to engage applicants by calling them to remind them of the expired ITTs. ITT reclamation will proceed only after all available remedies have been exhausted. My ministry reaffirms its commitment to fulfilling its mandate of revenue collection through the issuance of ITTs. Failure to collect ground rent from councils. Section 5 of the Lands Act, Chapter 184 of the laws of Zambia requires that a person holding land on leasehold after the conversion of such land from customary tenure should be liable to pay such annual ground rent in respect of land as the Commission of Lands may prescribe. Local authorities across the country act on behalf of the Ministry of Lands to collect ground rent for properties which the councils own and statutory housing and improvement areas within their jurisdiction. The councils are required to remit the ground rent collected to the Ministry of Lands. In paragraph 9.3d of the report of the Auditor General on the accounts of the Republic for the financial year ended 31st December 2023, mention was made of the standing ground rent from 58 councils in amounts totaling 173 million kwacha. A review of the status in 2024 revealed that the bill had increased to 181 million kwacha. Further, although the ministry wrote a letter of reminder to the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development dated 17th November 2021, the non-remittance of ground rent has been recurring. Our response, Chair. The observation by the Auditor General regarding failure to collect ground rent for councils is acknowledged. Cause of query. I wish to report to the committee that the query was caused by the local authorities' councils' failure to pay ground rent. Action taken. I wish to submit to Honorable Chair, Honorable Members of the Public Accounts Committee that my ministry has continued to focus on implementing the National Land Titling Program, through which properties that were previously under the management of the councils are being migrated to the Ministry of Lands database. Once achieved, the ground rent on affected properties will be collected directly by the ministry. Further, my ministry has continued to undertake debt recovery initiatives targeting all the 42 councils, which involved issuing updated ground rent bills and invoices to each council, providing updated statements of accounts, sending formal reminder letters to prompt payments, and held meetings with affected councils to discuss the liquidation of the ground rent. It is my sincere hope, Honorable Chairperson of the committee, members of the Public Accounts Committee, that my responses are adequate and satisfactory. I submit, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, PS, for your submission. Honorable members, that's a submission from PS Lands. Points of clarification. We can proceed. from budget and actual collections. And honorable colleagues, let's summarize our questions. We've got another witness to look at, local government. Honorable Wamnyima and Honorable Mwila can proceed.
Thank you, Chair, and PS, thank you for your submission. And PS, I take notes on page 2 of your submission. You have mentioned that these query on the first query on budget and actual collections is hinged on the fact that these clients with the Ministry of Lands you don't have any mechanism to compel them to pay. Now, I just want to know, PS, if this state of affairs is acceptable to continue, in your view, because when you submit your budget and knowing very well you can't compel people to pay, what is informing the budget being submitted? So my concern really is that should we continue to budget to state financial targets without any enforceable collection mechanism? What's the purpose of that? Are you considering instituting a legal framework to ensure that there's enforceable way to collect this mechanism? Otherwise, the targets remain just targets which are unachievable, and you have to wait when the client pays. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Mwila can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. On the same point, PS, you have stated on the action taken or the remedial measures is that the ministry is in the process of strengthening the Lands Act so that enforcement is enhanced. So could you elaborate further what measures or what are these measures that are strengthening in the act that will enforce or will enhance enforcement? What specific clauses or what specific sections in the act that you are proposing to enhance enforcement? I submit.
Thank you. Honorable Kambita.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Permanent Secretary, I believe the issue of you being a non-tax revenue agent of our country is quite very important. Whilst we are really making more efforts to ensure that taxes are collected or non-tax revenue is collected, this is one avenue which actually is very important, Chairperson. And to get this situation is quite saddening for us. I'm alive to the fact that you have a strategic plan that you developed most recently and which is now being disseminated. In that strategic plan, do you have any measures that you have actually put in place which address this issue of legislating enforcement of defaulters or those who have just chosen not to pay for ground rent and rates and many other fees that are collected by your ministry? The question seems to be the same because it really raises a concern. I heard in the public gallery there, Chairperson, there is a legal counsel at the ministry, and they are accountants, and we are estimating here, but the estimates are based on the goodwill of the people. So what is informing the estimates? And these powerful people employed by government and paid are not coming up with laws which we can pass here.
Thank you.
This.
Thank you, Honorable Kambita.
PS.
Thank you, PS. You can proceed with those 3 questions.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members of Parliament. The questions from Honorable Wamnyima, Honorable Mwila, and Honorable Kambita are somehow related. They are basically asking us to indicate what steps we are taking to ensure that there is compliance by the clients. Honorable Chair, as we have stated in our response on page 2, we are taking steps to ensure that there is compliance by way of sensitizing property owners on the importance of paying fees through those activities I mentioned, including road shows, adverts, and the SMS notifications. However, even as we target the property owners, individual landowners, we seem not to have made headway in terms of compliance and ensuring that the targets that we have set to ourselves are achieved. And this is why, honorable members of parliament, through your chair, we are saying perhaps we need to also carry out legal reforms to put in place mechanisms which should certainly compel members of the public, property owners, to settle their bills on time. And one of those reforms we are looking at is certainly to propose amendments to the Land Act, which process has begun, and we are already making consultations with several stakeholders, so that ultimately our targets that we have set ourselves in terms of revenue mobilization, domestic revenue mobilization, are supported by the necessary legal reforms. Otherwise, if we just rely on sensitization, meetings, SMEs, it has not worked. So we are looking at how can we move forward. One of the things that we have to do, Honourable Chair, members of parliament, is certainly to carry out the required legal reforms, and this is why we have indicated that we are in the process of trying to amend the Lands Act to support what we should be doing in terms of resource mobilization. Thank you, Chair.
Honourable Mwila.
Yes, Chair, just further clarity to my question. I was expecting maybe the PS is ready to even indicate those measures to strengthen compliance. For example, are you going to say you will now be jailing people, or to be more specific in terms of answering the legal reforms, specifically, how are you going to strengthen it? Are you able to share the specific proposals that you are putting? Because you have spoken generally about legal reforms, but my question is more specific. Exactly what enforcement measures are you including in the reforms?
Thank you. So PS, what the Honourable is asking for, suffice to say that we know that our 2026 budget is mostly based on domestic resource. And if we look at, we're reviewing the Ministry of Finance, and when we looked at in terms of the effective use of GSB, which is a government service bus, we find that the Ministry of Lands, you are not doing so well. Ministry of Mines, you are not doing so well. In terms of integration of your various systems with the GSB, so that we can collect the much needed revenue. So now the honourable member is asking, with all those things in taking into consideration, and you not having a legal framework, like you said, you cannot compel, how then, what reforms is a ministry coming up? I think that's also what Honourable Kambita asked. What are some of these pertinent issues the ministry wants to come up with legally, which we should hear from you as a ministry to ensure that the much needed revenue is collected, and also these people need to have their titles as it were, because that's the only prerequisite to know that you own a piece of land. They can be encouraged in one way or another to pay and have all these, if it being it rates, being what are some of these issues you are going to devise to ensure that revenue collection is enhanced in your ministry and your other agencies such as the council? I think that's basically what we are laboring to get from your ministry. Yes, Honorable Kamita.
Just to follow up to augment the questions that have been raised already, Permanent Secretary, and I believe it is the right forum for you to address some of the concerns that come from the public, including us as citizens. I think the concerns that have come up is your systems, just the way they processes. The role that is played by Surveyor General, who is here, and the law that is played by what do you call it? Commissioner of Lands and their staff don't seem to be in sync in such a way that a file can move from one point to the next within the speed time required. So due to these processes, people get frustrated in between here, and then revenue is not being collected. And my personal interaction there, PS, to tell you the truth, been there, where staff would just leave the office and do nothing. And then time is ticking, government is not collecting revenue. An issue of simply a subdivided property, and then one bought a piece, and the title already exists. All we need is just number it, and then somebody starts also paying for that. It's not being done. Years have passed. 4 years I can talk about a practical example here. People are just dragging their feet and can't do something to progress. So these and probably the group of staff involved at critical points, they need to be checked. There must be a way of auditing. I know you have internal auditors here to check the critical points of one who needs to do something for a file to move to the next. I think, to me, this is my observation. As an accountant, I'm able to see this is where the problem is. I submit, Chair.
Thank you. PS, you can proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members of Parliament. The issues that are raised are very valid, and I want to indicate that as I respond, I also ask some of my colleagues perhaps to further help in responding. We are in a hurry to, by all possible means, use a serious, robust digital transformation in terms of offering our services with regard to land administration. And in doing that is to try and down on unnecessary delays and ensuring that there is, first of all, serious coordination and the harmonization within the different departments of the ministry, and also ultimately ensure that our clients, members of the public, are also brought on board by way of being sensitized, being encouraged. We are on the government service bus, for example, where our services can be seen or obtained through online interaction with the government service bus. However, even with that, we are saying, in responding to the questions that the honorable members have genuinely raised, how do we enforce, how do we make people pay? Honorable Miller talks about a very radical approach of sending people to jail. We may not have put that in our proposed amendment of the Land Act, but however we have taken steps such as involvement of bailiffs, which is prevalent in some institutions. They use that approach. We are also looking at how we can use that approach. It's one of the issues we're using. You know that councils, when they are trying to collect their dues, are very aggressive. You know, as government, sometimes we are perceived as Nvaboma, meaning, Chair, that people think this is just a service being provided to us by our government and perhaps does not require our citizens to pay. Land is big business. We are looking at how we can empower our people through ownership of land and use land to empower them and to engage in business transactions. That is why we are trying to, as much as possible, issue title deeds to our people so that they can use the title deeds to engage in formal business undertakings. And one of the things that we are also looking at is working closely with like-minded institutions who we are collaborating with those that are involved in revenue collection, such as the Zambia Revenue Authority, ZRA. We are working with ZRA and other institutions to try and see, with the help of course Smart Zambia and other institutions, to see how best we can enhance our service delivery, including ensuring that we collect the revenue as the required government revenue. But even if we do that, the ultimate should be able for us to reform the necessary legislation so that we indeed strengthen the enforcement mechanisms, which should be able to ultimately compel our clients, our people, to pay for services within the expected period of time. I submit, Chair. My colleagues from the ministry on that point, the Commission of Lands.
The Commission of Lands, you can proceed.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. I just want to add on the other measures we are contemplating in the review of the Act. Currently, you will note that where there is outstanding ground rent, the only mechanism that the law provides is a penalty for late payment, which is 25%. But that has proved not effective because people can choose to just wait or let years pass, because if you calculate a 25%, maybe it's just 20 ngwe. So they would let the bill accumulate from 200 kwacha per year to way over 600. They are not paying. What can we do? We have the mechanism provided for that we can repossess where there is outstanding ground rent. But the challenge has been, you will find that the property is developed. So we are stuck. On the one hand, there is an outstanding ground rent, the property is developed. We cannot repossess, or we cannot use the repossession as a mechanism. So we get stuck. So what do we want to do? We want to see if we can use a process of attachment. For example, if this building is a commercial building, it has outstanding ground rent, we must have a provision where we can take over the property, recoup our ground rent, and hand it over later. But that provision is not in the law. So there are a lot of other things we are thinking of, just to ensure that there's no late payment of ground rent, there's no outstanding ground rent. People are taking advantage because the penalty fee is a very weak mechanism of enforcing this kind of a statute to collect ground rent. That's the addition I wanted to mention. And there was a mention of which specific provisions. Yes, we have provisions such as Section 4, 14, and 11 of the Act. These are provisions that we want to strengthen in order to have, a clear force in terms of collecting ground rent. People must pay immediately we deliver the bills. Not we deliver and then we wait for their goodwill to come through and pay. Why? Because we don't have that mechanism. The bailiff arrangement is very good. Local authorities, when they submit they deliver their property rates bill, they give a time frame. If you don't, then they come into pounds, get your properties and go and sell. We don't have that mechanism ourselves. Those are some of the things we want to bring on board so that we are not owed these monies in arrears by clients. I submit, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Wamima, progress? Yes, we can progress. Thank you. Commissioner, can switch off the mic.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, just moving to the failure to carry out survey works. I think the PS in his submission has observed that this was mainly because of land disputes, and the same properties were occupied by different occupants. I just want to understand from your records these properties and the approved site plans. Who issued them? Was it the local authority? And if so, why isn't the ministry responsible for enforcing these approved site plans? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mkumbi, and then Honorable.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, in addition to Honorable Mnima's question, and arising from your responses, where you are saying properties were found to be partially or wholly occupied by individuals. So kindly inform the committee the processes that are undertaken before you issue a quotation to someone. What do? Do you just, your officers just sit in the office and issue a quotation, or first they go on the ground? For them to come up with a proper quotation, how is it done? Because if it's done correctly, they'll be able to pick a few things on the ground before you even issue somebody a quotation. That's what I believe. Chair, I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Mula, can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. On the failure to attain output targets, your submission page 2 going to page 3, specifically on the certificates of title, where the target was 250,000, the actual was 13,000, and in your response, I can simply put it that you are blaming it on the unrealistic target of 250,000, and now you are saying you have revised to 20,000. Don't know whether you just want to get closer to 13,000, but I want to understand that the 250,000 passed through all levels of your ministry, finally submitted that yes, we intend or we target to issue 250,000. Now today you are calling it unrealistic. What was unrealistic about it? And what is your basis now to revise the target downwards to 20,000? How are you going to achieve it? What was unrealistic about the 250,000, and what is your basis for arriving now at a revised, much lower target of 20,000? The submit, Chair.
Thank you. PS, you can proceed with those 3 questions.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. With your permission, let me ask the Surveyor General to indicate, to help me respond on the first question in regard to the survey works, on the work that is done, and the question that the honorable members have raised. Then also on the question by Honorable Mulumbi, on Mkombi, sorry, sincere apologies, Chair. Honorable Mkombi, on what process are taken to issue, at the time we issued the quotations. Then the last question by Honorable Muila, I'll ask Mr. Tembo from our from Medici, rather from our coordinator for the National Land Titling Program, to just shed some light with regard to the required response on that question from the honorable members, and perhaps Chief Registrar, you may also come in. Surveyor General.
Thank you. Surveyor General, you can proceed. Taking into consideration as well that this query appeared again. This the issue of failure to carry out survey works, and again in your submission, PS, you said you've attached these properties had not been surveyed, and we also want to find out why were they not provided to the Auditor General when they were carrying out this very important assignment, and also the ministry knowing they usually do the entry meeting and exit meeting. What transpired then? Why should they come now? Because as PAC we are not auditors, PS. As our role is different, so we would want also you to highlight why are they coming now. So Surveyor General can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. I will start with the question that Honorable Mukumbi asked. Is the due diligence done before issuing a quotation? Chair, you may wish to know that we issue the quotations from our provincial offices. I'll give an example. If we are in Chipata and the property in Vubwi, so to go to Vubwi and conduct a due diligence on the ground costs money, and therefore in that regard due diligence may not be done. And as such, when you receive the site plan, you have to use the regulations and issue the quotation. So the answer is yes and no. So in that regard, you are seated in Chipata, there is a site plan coming from Vubwi, you may not do due diligence. However, in certain instances where it is feasible to go to site and establish if that site is incumbent upon or not, that can be done. But you need to understand, Chair, that there is also human error. You may find that you are not doing that. Why am I saying so? The case of Chipata, we have an establishment of 10 surveyors, and then you have got only 3 who are operating at a station. With that kind of scenario, due diligence may not be an option because you are constrained with human resource. Chair, I would also like to comment on what you, Chair, asked. Why is it that the surveys were done after the query? I wish to respond as follows, that Chair, when we issue the quotations, that's why I wanted to respond first to the question raised by Honorable Mukumbi, that when we issue a quotation, due diligence was not done, and therefore we don't know what is on the ground. And therefore, when people go on the ground, they find that there is an issue. Then you take note of that issue, and now you communicate to the necessary authorities. In this case, the local authority. So you write, engage them. When this matter is resolved, then you go back and survey. And in this case, I think one of the examples is where the auditors also visited is in Kaoma. There was a notice that it was incumbent upon, but with time, that issue was resolved. So after the issue was resolved, surveyors went on the ground to now undertake the survey. That's why in this report, Chair, out of the 17 that were queried and done, and the 9 are still pending because the issues that were noticed have not been resolved, and therefore they keep pending until such a time that the issues that are on the ground are resolved. Chair,
next question. Are you done, Surveyor General?
No, there is an issue that Honorable Wamunyima raised. Why not enforce site plans? Perhaps the Chair would request for maybe just to ask if the detail of this question, I was not very clear.
Honorable Wamunyima, can you please quickly?
I wanted to understand these unsurveyed properties. Who issues the site plan? Is it the local authority or not? And if it's the local authority, why is the ministry not enforcing the approved site plan for these particular sites? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Surveyor General. Can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Site plans are actually done by registered planners, and they are submitted before a planning authority for scrutiny. After that, they are considered, and then they are sent to Office of Commission of Lands, and then Surveyor General allocates a number. So they go through a whole process. And therefore, if a site plan is done and the number is allocated, then you proceed to do a survey.
Honorable Mima, do you have a follow-up question, or we can proceed?
Yes, I appreciate the process. So where is the challenge? If you have such a nice process, rigorous process, which you sound like it's working, but you have queries. So where is the issue?
Thank you. PS, are you taking up that, or still going to the Surveyor General?
Yes, Chair. One of the issues we are trying to deal with, like I mentioned, Chair, is to try and ensure that there is harmonization within our different departments by way of, as much as possible, using the systems that speak to each other. In the past, we had a system called ZILMIS, and now we have a new system called ZILAS. And you will find that we are trying to, like I said, to see how we can, local authorities, Ministry of Lands, all of us being able to share the same data and minimize those discrepancies where what is being done, for instance, by the Department of Lands, speak to done in another department. So those are some of the issues that were steps that we're taking under the new ZILA system, to be able to ensure that everything, we are all speaking the same language and sharing the same data, the local authorities and ourselves. So that is what we're trying to do, Honorable Chair, to respond to Honorable Mnima's question. And then there was also another question, I think, from Honorable Mila with regard to the realistic figures on page 3 on the output targets. This is where I said, with your permission, Chair, I'll ask the Chief Registrar and the coordinator from the National Land Titling Program to share their views with regard to why we have those challenges. Chief Registrar and...
Thank you. Chief Registrar can proceed, then followed by the
coordinator for the National Land Titling Program, Mr. Tembo.
Yes. Chief Registrar can proceed. Mr. Tembo, come after you, Madam.
I thought you would start an overview of the project before I chip in, Chair.
You can proceed, Mr. Tembo.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, honorable members. The question asked by Honorable Mwila is the 250,000 target, which was for 2024, which we labeled unrealistic, and how we then came to the 20,000 for the year. I wish, with your permission, Chair, to draw you to the table on page 7, which highlights the number of titles that have been issued since the project started. Honorable Chair, you will notice.
So before you proceed,
yes,
please just want to understand, who came up with this target?
Chair, I think when the contract was being agreed, it was a mutual agreement between the ministry and Medici, who are the service providers, to issue 4 million titles, based off what was then considered to be available land for titling purposes.
I was going to ask you another question. Honorable Mulayes, you can switch off Mr. Tembo just a minute. We just want to establish a PS, because when you're coming up with targets, I think from this perspective of the committee, we've told even Ministry of Finance, your focus should be realistic. Yeah, don't come up with focus we are not realistic. Then you come here, you know, we failed D, no, we need to review and look at that, because I mean you are conferred with that duty to come up with realistic, attainable. Anything is, it should be attainable somehow. So Honorable Mula, quickly.
Okay, yes, thank you, Chair. As we follow the submission, I want to understand if this 250,000 is within the 4 million. As we follow his submission, because he has taken us to where I also have other questions. So is the 250,000 within the 4 million?
So Mr. Tembo, take note of that. You can proceed with your submission you were making. Who came up with this unrealistic target? Because PSC's target is tied to, it's a performance based. You perform, you raise this money, you get this money. So if we reduce a target, we reduce a contract. That's how I understand it, unless I'm wrong. So I want him to tell us who came up with this. This was not a one-sided where the contractor just said, I'm going to do this, let's agree, sign. These are deliverables. There was some interaction with the ministry, providing of information, and then we agree, okay, we can do this, but is it attainable? Mr. Tembo, you can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. As I was saying, the target was mutually agreed between the service provider and the ministry, and all players who were in that negotiating team. What was agreed really was that based off the number of properties that were estimated to be available for titling, there would be 4 million properties available, and this was mutually agreed. So the 250,000 actually is part of the 4 million titles. So every year it was assumed we would have, for instance, 250,000 titles issued. So that is where that 250,000 came from. Now when you look at the performance as we started the project, you will notice, for instance, in 2021 we had 17,000 titles issued. In 2022 we had 48,000 issued, and in 2023 we had 37,000 issued. Based off that, we did recognize that the areas we had covered, which were mostly the Copper Belt and Lusaka, by 2023 were now diminished. The other areas now that we were tackling were Solwezi and the southern province. And to that extent, therefore, in 2024, we reduced the amount to 20,000, on the understanding that the highest possible number of properties that we thought we would issue would have happened on the Copper Belt. And on the Copper Belt, we issued 48,000. Now, the reason I have asked, Chair, that you look at this table clearly and carefully, is that when you look at the number of properties that we actually visited, house to house, so to speak, 163,000 properties. And out of those, we issued 220,000 offer letters. And in an ideal situation, it means that those 220,000 offer letters would translate into title. However, only 121,000 have translated into title, meaning there is an attrition between the number of properties that have actually been enumerated, captured, and the number of titles that finally are produced. This is as a result of a number of factors, one of which, as we've said, is the inability of people to pay. Remember that these properties are falling within the confines of areas that are originally been irregular, informal settlements, and we are in the process of regularizing them. So I want to submit, Chair, that yes, when with the 20,000 estimate of titles for the year 2024, it was based off what we had observed in the previous 3 years of the activity that we are undertaking under the National Land Titling Program. I submit, Chair.
There's a question from Honorable Mwila about the 220, but my question is what benchmarks did you use to come up with the 4 million for 7 years? Because I still want to understand. Me, I love accounting. I want to understand what informed the ministry. There should be a cost center. There should be, you looked at something to come up with 4 million. Because if you look at 4 million for 7 years, you're supposed to do about 571 titles in a year. 571,000. So what were you looking at? What was your database sitting on? And for you, because it should be something you're looking at for you to base that 4 million. Where did it come from? I just want to understand. And also, because you look at the deviation from 4 million, you come to 20,000 per year, right? That's your target. 20 by 7. Okay. So now that looks feasible for a given period of 7 years. Now if you are looking at 4 million, honest, and you don't through, I hope you've been there from inception. Mr. Tembo, you've been before this committee. Just make understand. Came up with that 4 million. Then the registrar will come through your PS. You can proceed. And also answer Honorable Mila's question.
Honorable Chair, Mr. Tembo, help us to respond to this issue, given that you've been around and you have the background, and like the chair has guided, once you are done, then the chief registrar will also be able to chip in. Please go ahead. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, Chair. Perhaps just for the issue of Honorable Mwila, I did indicate that the 250,000 were related to the 4 million. So it was being divided every year, that this year you do 250 and so on. So based off the 4 million. Regarding the 4 million itself, like I said, when the initial discussions started, the assessment that was made was that there are, based off the census, that there are almost, I think, 5 million properties in Zambia. And of the 5 million properties that are in Zambia, at that time, there were 240,000 titles countrywide. So there are only, at that time, there were only 240,000 titles in the country. So I think based off that, there was that assumption that then you could get to the 4 million titles. However, of those properties, some of those properties sit within customary land. Some of them sit in areas where titling might be very difficult to achieve. And so the reality based off that was that unless and until we change the law related to customary land documentation, we will not be able to achieve. So currently we only issue title on state land, as you are aware. And so as a result, when we started implementing, we then had to begin to think about reducing the target like that.
For me, it was a very ambitious program, but with no proper benchmark or feasibility study, because if you had come up with a better feasibility study, I think you're going to reduce the scope. Because some of these things you have to reduce the scope, then you can have a phase 2 or escalate it, see how it works, then go robust, big program, but with no proper, I think, guidelines. Anyway, Honorable Muladi, I have a question before and Honorable Amnyima can proceed. Or first, let's allow the Commissioner to comment, then you proceed. Commissioner can provide, Registrar, sorry, Chief Registrar can proceed. And also tell us if you were there. So I have to ask you questions, you can proceed.
Chair, I was there, and I think Mr. Tembo has explained the parameters, how the target was arrived at. The other factor is that in the contract it stated that under this project the titles would be issued in the provinces along the line of rail. So the assumption was that in all these provinces we'll find the land untitled and we'll just go in, people will pay and we'll title. But when we started the project we realized that the situation on the ground was not like that. Others were under customary, others were under ZCCM. Even those that were okay, people were not able to pay. So we encountered a number of challenges that just showed us that the target was unrealistic and different from what we actually found on the ground. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So I should take it this feasibility study was not done to ascertain.
It was not done, Honorable Chair, must admit.
Thank you. Honorable Mwila and Honorable Amnyima.
Thank you very much, Chair. Now the confirmation that the feasibility was not done. Chair, this is not the first time that the committee is addressing, or this issue of national land titling is appearing in the Auditor General's report. Even last year we had this issue, and I think last year we took time to even feedback to PS. You were not there then, but Mr. Tembo and I think most of your team were here. We took time to give feedback. I think for me, I don't agree that you should reduce the target. People need these titles, and the feedback we were giving that time was that you see all these things you have highlighted on ZCCM land, council titles. These were facts even when the program was starting. They have not come up now. They were facts as existing at that time. The main problem is the cost, because you have high cost, you have medium, and then the low cost. So the main problem is the cost. For example, in Mufira, the lowest of them will be the low cost. You're asking them to pay 1,300 somewhere there. It's beyond the reach of many people, but people need titles. So to reduce from 4 million, you're actually disadvantaging people. If you look at the cost, how much you are asking people to pay, you would find that if that was revised, actually you reach your 4 million. There are a lot of people, I can speak for Mufrida, who actually need titles. Others, as you have put it here, have got, these are formal settlements, but they have the title issued by the council. And this program has been marketed, the advantages of moving from a council-issued title to the national title. The advantages, of people appreciate this, but it's just the cost that is beyond the reach of many people. So revising the target, Chair, does not solve the problem. You just go back. You didn't do the feasibility study, but you can still do midway as we are implementing, and look at how much you are asking people to pay. If that was reduced, you find that in fact this 4 million, you reach it. People need titles, PS. They need titles. Yeah. I think that's my submission.
Honorable Amnyima,
Chair, thank you very much. PS, like Honorable Miller stated, the Ministry of Lands comes every year to pack with this query. Last year they were here, this same query, and I remember asking questions. So, how conclusive is it? Come next year again to say we want. So when are you concluding negotiations with Medici? to amend this contract and revise these targets.
Thank you, Honorable Mukumbi.
Chair, in addition, it seems there's too much desk research in the ministry and desk decisions without your officers moving on the ground to ascertain what is there. For instance, even just to issue a quotation, I believe there's standard operating procedures to do that. There should be something that's procedural. Because you can't say you can go, you cannot go, and all that. There should be some procedure somewhere. Not only that, what informs what is called line of rail? What is it? Is it 5 kilometers off the main towns along the line of rail, or what was it? For us to say some land is falling under chiefdoms, some land is... So, what was the procedure? What was the ministry think of? Because I believe there are people there that sat to make these decisions. You make decisions, then you come and say, well, this can't work because we discover that, we discover that. Why not do this before you even go on, or before you even come up with your targets? So where is the problem? Is it manpower? Is it resources? Because I believe the issue of manpower, especially in survey department, was discussed last year, where we were told that authority was granted to employ more surveyors. We don't know whether that was done or it just died out like that. So how can we help you? Is it resources, or is it manpower, or what is informing the ministry to continue desk research all the time and making these decisions that are not workable? Chair, I thank you for that.
Thank you. PS, you can react to those questions.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. In responding to the questions raised by Honorable Mula, Honorable Muluma, and Honorable Mukumbi, the Medici project, the issues that we have observed, the observations that we have made rather, are very important, and we've taken note of those. You may wish to know, Honorable Chair, Honorable members of the Public Accounts Committee, that these legacy issues are real, and of course we've taken responsibility, and in going forward we have had engagements with Medici to try and see how we can perhaps agree or amend. Apparently in the contract there's no room for amending the contract between ourselves and Medici. This contract is expected to run up to August 2027, and thereafter perhaps then we can look at issues differently. However, what we have also done, Honorable Chair, Honorable members of Parliament, is to try and move forward by way of also discussing with PSMD, Minister of Finance, with a view to perhaps help us in terms of enhancing capacity by way of bringing in additional manpower. We appreciate and indeed know how important it is for our people who are property owners to have title deeds issued. Like I said earlier, Honorable Chair, this is something we think can help to also further unlock the economic potential, with property owners also being able to participate in various economic activities using their title deeds as either collateral, as a means of accessing resources from various financial institutions. So this is something that we are working on, but also, like we alluded to, Honorable Chair, we think that whether it is Medici project or contract, or indeed our own sporadic titling, we still have to be realistic and also look at what can be done in terms of making it possible for our people to be able to issue to have title. As Honorable Mula observes, yes, it's true that in some cases, some of our clients, members of the public, those who are targeted under this project, could be having challenges in terms of making the necessary payments. So these are administrative issues that we are looking at between within this program in view of not being able to completely dismiss this exercise, but look at what can be done within the challenges that we face. And we are hoping that after 2027, if the lessons learned, then we can be able to perhaps come up with something that can honestly be meaningful and be realistic in terms of achieving our targets as a Chair.
Thank you. Let's make progress. PS, this issue of Medici, I think we are tired of seeing it in the Auditor General's report. I think it's high time you start with the relevant departments and let's expedite it in the quickest possible time so that we can align to what which you need to provide as a ministry. I think I did mention earlier also issues of a government service bus. We've been this up and down issue with the Ministry of Lands. I think it's important. We advise you, even as you who finish with, we advise you to come with Secretary to Treasury when it comes to do his Treasury minute that we accompany. We want to resolve this issue, especially on the government service bus vis-a-vis collection of revenue, as it were. So take note that the day ST is coming, please come with him as well. Let's make progress, honorable colleagues. Failure to meet the contract deliverables is the same thing. We're talking about targets. So I think we can look at irregularities in administration of ground rent, outstanding ground rent. Any questions on that? Then we'll proceed with failure to build appropriate ground rent, missing land area size is the same, you can combine. And also failure to reclaim expired invitation to treats. And failure to correct the ground rent as well from the councils. Let's compound all these under administration of ground rent so that we can wind up with this meeting. We have also a Minister of Local Government to deal with. Honorable colleagues, you can proceed. Honorable Mula.
Thank you, Chair. On outstanding ground rent,
yeah.
The total of 1.3 billion kwacha unpaid ground rent. Now, the cause of query is what I need further elaboration, controlling officer, where you are saying this query arose due to errors in the billing amounts which resulted from properties having been migrated wrongly as hectares instead of square meters. So first of all, what has been done to correct this? Because you are saying people were wrongly billed, and have there been people who even paid based on the wrong billing? What has been done to correct this error? I submit, Chair.
PS, my question is on the local authority, because usually they're like your agents. What challenges are you having in collecting the aforesaid ground rent from the local authorities which you've mentioned in your submission, a number? What are some of the actions you want to ensure you take to escalate this matter so that revenue that belongs to consolidated fund is paid? Because even as Minister of Lands, you have the leeway to suspend your agency from them. So if they're not paying, you can simply say, we're going to suspend your agency. And if you suspend, do they continue collecting on your behalf because you've suspended the agency? So I think those are some of the issues I want you to address, coupled with Honorable Mueller's question, and also you indicated in your submission that the failure to reclaim the expired ITTs. I think that mostly be handled by your commissioner. I don't know if it's your commissioner or not. What is the issue on that aspect? Why are we failing to reclaim the expired ITT so that we can regularize some of these issues, as it were? You can proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. On the outstanding ground rent, we have, like we said, despite outreach programs to sensitize the residents on paying ground rent, no measures are in place to compel the clients to pay the required outstanding rent. Sorry? Yeah. Reason being that in this particular situation, the law appears to be a bit inadequate, and this is why, Honorable Chair, we are proposed that we are in the process of making amendments to the rules of legislation, including the Land Act, to enable us have a robust enforcement mechanism in that regard. Then also for the local authorities who are our agents, we have been putting issues on record by writing to them, for them to be able to pay what is outstanding. And obviously there has been a non-response. We are continuing to engage the local authorities and also through the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development to see how we can collaborate and work together in this particular important issue. But we are also looking at learning from them in terms of how robust they can be in collecting what is outstanding. They are very, very, for lack of a better term, Chair, should I say, very vicious when they are collecting what is due to them. Perhaps we are looking at, like I just alluded to earlier, that we are looking at making the laws more strong for them to be able to comply in ensuring that they remit to the ministry what they collect on behalf of the ministry. That is what we are going to be doing. And then with regard to the challenges on the outstanding, with regard to issues of part of the outstanding areas, one of the challenges which we have highlighted is that we are reporting that the bills which were sent could have had some errors because the properties have been migrated wrongly from hectares instead of square meters, and therefore resulting in overbilling. And this is why, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members of Parliament, we did indicate that we have taken steps to clean up the data so that appropriate billing or appropriate billing is what is achieved, as opposed to those challenges. So we have embarked on a very comprehensive data cleaning and validation, and obviously this then will be able to address the challenge that is being reported in this regard, Honorable Chair. I submit to those questions that were raised by Honorable members, your Chair, Honorable Chair, and Honorable Mwila. Honorable Kambita, I don't know, did you respond to your
question? Now, PS, thank you for your submission. I don't want the ministry to use a legal framework as a defense, because we don't know how far that Land Act has reached. We don't know if definitely it's not at Parliament. Yes, Honorable.
And sympathize the PS. It wasn't there. Even last year, we have been told the Land Act to be amended. So we don't know how long it's taking. What form of consultation is this act? So I think we need decisive action with the ministry on these particular issues. I mean, it shouldn't take that long to amend the law.
Thank you. So, PS, I don't want you to use us as a defense. What we want is pragmatic solutions or mitigation measures you are taking vis-a-vis some of these issues, so that we are able to say, yes, the ministry is taking certain steps to ensure that some of these issues. You've got the Land Act, yes, we've seen the loopholes and the issues which I think have been highlighted by others, but before that is done, what are we doing as a ministry to enhance some of these things? We were talking about issues of migration, where now the hectares of land to now what, all those. How was the migration done? And maybe you can confirm that the migration was successful, because if we've got those teething issues where there's transposition of hectares to what or to whatever issues are coming out, which means the migration was not successful, because it should give us what we are migrating. If it's an hectare, it should come out as an hectare. When you're moving from, I don't know if it's Zilas A or Zilas B to that effect. And who informed the ministry or or your office to say that this migration was successful? And if it was successful, why are we having these issues now, which have culminated in overbilling, underbilling, whatever it is? Then now we need to reconcile, and we know these processes do take a lot of time with government and also our working culture. And you find even the person who wants to pay, they'll come to the ministry 2-3 times, they find queues, they move this paper to there, in the end they just go and sit home. I can give you an example. I've got a pending title, I don't know for how long it was paid for. Still, you go there, there are all these issues and things like that. So we want to see the pragmatic mitigation measures the ministry is taking, and also want to understand this migration which has given us these issues. Who took this migration? And I hope your ICT director is here, and who informed the PS that the migration has been carried out, is done correctly, because you can see these issues which the auditors have raised. And then how do we move forward? Because we can't progress like that. It's like a back and forth. Like Honorable Wamnyima is saying, yes, the amendment will come, but before the amendment, we can do with what we have. What are we doing with what we have, so that we can mitigate some of these issues moving forward? I think that's what I want to hear from your team, and also convince us as a committee that yes, we have these issues and this is what we are doing, because I've seen submissions are based on the legal framework, or if the legal framework which means we continue business as until that legal framework, God knows when it will come. We are dissolving Parliament next year, May. Very short period of time. I don't know if we have going to have a legislative session to look at some of those issues. So we want to hear what you are doing as a ministry vis-a-vis these issues raised, as it were. And also, I have not seen the letters which you've written to the councils about this ground rent issue. If you have them, please provide them, that you've written to the aforesaid councils and they've never reacted to it. We'll summon them to come. We can leave this portion. We have the letters and let them come and explain why they're behaving like this. So I want you, PS, to react to that. Honorable Mwila.
Yes, Chair. On the same errors in migration, you are submitting that comprehensive data validation is currently ongoing, but the impact this has is that it's depriving the government of revenue because there are errors in the billings. Now, how long is this validation exercise going to take before you can have the correct information sitting in the database? Thanks.
Thank you. Director ICT, where is the Director ICT? Okay. There are those issues, I think, through the PS. PS, you can proceed, then you can delegate to your Director ICT.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members of Parliament, for those important questions you have raised. I want to indicate that, yes, there are certain administrative measures that we've been undertaking in order to be more efficient, including, obviously, discussing with PSMD, Minister of Finance, to beef up the required manpower as we carry out as we carry out or implement our mandate. We have also been able to engage members of the public by way of having sensitization programs through radio programs, television, road shows, and also ensuring that we continue, like I said, also through debates to encourage members of the public. And then, Honorable Chair, for the letters we've been able to write to, like I said in our submission, 42 local authorities who still have outstanding ground rents, which they should be able to remit to the ministry. The letters are copies of the letters are here. I apologize, Chair. These are copies that should have been sent to you through the office of the clerk. With regard to the issues of migration and what steps we are taking to make this enhanced service provision, let me invite, with your permission, Chair, the Director ICT to just shed more light with regard to what steps are being undertaken to migrate from the old Zeomis to the new Zealous, which we are currently using. And there are some of the advantages that are there as opposed to the previous Zeomis. Director ICT.
Director ICT can proceed also address issues of migration and these issues, and also the issue of data validation, which Honorable Mila has highlighted. You can proceed.
Thank you very much, Chair. First of all, I wish you had given me the privilege also to state whether or not I was there when this was carried out, like you did to the Chief Registrar.
You can proceed and make that as your preamble and tell us where you were and when you joined the ministry. You can proceed.
Yeah. Yes, Chair. So for your own benefit, I wasn't there when this exercise was carried out. However, we assume responsibility of everything that happened before. Since we are now in this, I'm now in this office. So to start with, migration was carried out by the contractor, .gov, which developed the GSP and all systems that sit on the GSP. The first thing I did when I joined the Ministry of Lands was to ask for a migration report, which unfortunately I haven't seen to date. So in terms of whether I can state whether the migration was carried out successfully, Chair, I do not want to mislead this committee. I have not seen that report. Therefore, I'm not sure. But however, what is clear are the issues that are coming out now. Yes, we noticed that we have issues to do with area sizes, and what came out after we noticed these issues is the fact that when data was being migrated from Ziomis to the current system, ZILAS, what I'm meant to believe is that the sizes were defaulting to a certain unit, and this is why we have them wrong in ZILAS. And now, Chair, we couldn't just sit back and say, well, we'll run with data as migrated, and this is why the permanent secretary here has stated that the ministry has taken steps to clean up this data, and at the moment there are some interns, I think, that have been engaged working specifically on this item. However, some of these property sizes might need verification in the field, and you did hear the PS make mention of the fact that we are engaging the European Union so that we can do a pilot in Chisamba. Now this will require teams going down on the ground to verify the sizes of the properties. I think this is where we are, Chair. I submit.
So there's no report of migration. Now I'm wondering where this is coming out from your submission, because PS, your director, I don't know if it's director or assistant director, ICT. Yeah, his submission is that he has not seen that migration report. So I don't know where we are basing. I hear .gov are the ones who did the migration. I think there should be synchronization with the ministry itself, because when they are doing data migration, it's your data they are migrating, and they need to have certain, even for them to go in the system, they need to have certain prerequisites, passwords, who's I think there are roles who are supposed to authorize for this migration of this, because it can crash also. There are those possibilities when you are migrating and then everything is gone. Then where's your backup and all that? So I think PS, we see the challenges. There are challenges, I think, which needs to be mitigated and looked at to ensure that we fast tracking, we move forward as a ministry, and we can see from the submissions the gaps, and we can see from the people you are with that you've got a full complement. But you've mentioned issues of manpower. We really need to make to have a movement, I think, from the ministry's perspective, vis-a-vis issues to do with Medici, issues to do with collection of ground rent and all that, which are your core mandate as a ministry. We see the gaps, and I think in conclusion we'll highlight these gaps to you. Honorable colleagues, do you have any questions for the ministry? Yes, Honorable Mkumbi. PS, we can have a look at those letters if they're available. They can be passed on to here. Yes, Honorable Mkumbi, proceed.
Yeah, Chair, based on what the director there was saying, I think it's not supported by facts. We are a committee of facts, and you are very clear from the beginning that you are not there, and you did not want to mislead the committee. You just end there. Because when you keep now saying something that is supported by facts, you begin to mislead the committee. So when you say we're not there and you don't want to mislead the committee, just end there. Because everything you have said here is not supported by facts. That's where we are. So, Chair, no further questioning. I think we are okay with the submission.
Honorable Lungu.
Chair, thank you very much. I just want a comment from the PS. PS, good afternoon. I'm Mulungu Lacson, area member of parliament for Kapoche constituency in Sinda. PS, there's a growing concern from the general public over the council revenue collection. Some of our people, they are paying double runs and to the council. What is your comment in this regard? I submit, Chair.
Thank you. PS, there's that issue. Honorable colleagues, 42 letters were written. I've given Auditor General to do that verification. And councils have not reacted. If not, councils have not reacted, we'll call them to come and explain on that sector why they are not ensuring that they pass on the revenue they've collected on your behalf. So PS, you can react to that question. I think it's a quick one, then we can proceed.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Chair, that question from Honourable Lungu from Kapoche constituency. It's true that in some councils we have challenges with regard to how they help to manage the issues of land, to a point where they come up in some cases with their own rules, which are not even supported by ourselves as a ministry, because local authorities are agents of the ministry, and everything that they do should be within the confines of the law. It's true that in some cases council have taken matters in their own hands by way of charging, if you like, Honourable Chair, abnormal fees when it comes to land as a means of raising revenue for themselves. Sometimes they want to buy in Sinda a vehicle for the council chairman or the mayor, or they want to buy a vehicle or pay salaries for members of staff, realizing that perhaps the money that they get through the local government equalization fund is not sufficient, so they do all those things. In some cases, when we have taken note of those issues, we come in to advise. Some cases we only come to know when members of the public complain. So this is why we have indicated, Chair, that even with regard to our relationship with the local authorities as our agents, we believe that once we harmonize or perhaps strengthen the necessary pieces of legislation, we may be able to address those challenges that we face when it comes to dealing with local authorities. I submit, Chair.
Thank you. PS, I think we end our interaction here, and honourable colleagues have raised concern to do with your Medici vis-a-vis issues of targets and how I think those targets were arrived at, and also the revision of the aforesaid targets, as it were. I think it's important that we quickly have a sit down with the aforesaid contractor so that we can harmonize on this very important aspect. Like colleagues have submitted, that this land titling process is very important for our citizens from various jurisdictions and country. So it's very, very important that we harmonize and we quickly realign ourselves and start moving on a right trajectory as a ministry to ensure that we provide, we give our people titles, as it were, which also culminate into revenue generation for the ministry, which is very, very important. And also issues to do with survey. I think from time to time this has been highlighted in the Auditor General's report, not only this one, even the previous report. I think it's important, Surveyor General, that you relook, as you look at even the issue of the legal framework, you relook at also the seating of the Surveyor General offices in your district, trickle down to provinces and districts. So there's a lot of demand. So if there is demand, let's do the work and generate revenue. All we need to relook at is a staff complement and structure, that we have it approved by relevant authorities to ensure that if the service is needed, let's provide it. Let the government bring bills, and government should provide that service to the Zambian people. As it were, we do understand constraints of fiscal space by government, but that doesn't entail that we fail to collect revenue. Issues to do with ground rent, I think also very important. The irregularities in this, outstanding, and also your migration of data from, I don't know if the old system to new system. Let's do the interrogation and see where we're missing, so that there can be amendments to that issue, ICT, so that we can move in the right direction vis-a-vis charging of ground rent, not people are disputing to say, no, me I've got 10 hectares but it's showing 100 or whatever it is, as it were. And PS, with your team, even as we wind up this meeting, we don't want business as usual, so that when you go back to the ministry, it's the same. We come next year, we'll be talking about the same issue. I think that should not be. Even our recommendations this year will be much more stiffer. That's why I want you to come with the ST. We'll also tell him, the ST, we tell him that we've heard about this implementation of some of our resolutions, but we want to see to an end. When does government finish to implement? You finish to implement, we are looking at the new issues, new queries, not perpetual queries. Every time it's the same queries, year in, year out. I think we want to graduate from that to see to it that we are now on the right trajectory as a ministry. I think we've spoken about issues of domestic resource mobilization, which is very, very important. And why we are telling you to come back with STs, not only on this issue, but on GSB, because Ministry of Lands and other ministries have been highlighted in there, and we've looked at collections. There is no improvement. Even as we are pushing more funds into the system, ZILAS integration with GSB, but we are seeing little traction. It's there, but not as it's supposed to be. So PS, make that as your number one priority to ensure that we move in that direction to help, because we are appropriating the budget as we speak. We are approving the budget as Parliament, and that money comes from the same money you are collecting, the same money Ministry of Health is collecting, the same money Agriculture, the same money Mines is collecting. But if we are not able to collect, and we have a budget of 89 to 90% on DRM, then how do we observe and other quasi-government will help us to, even yourselves? You see, so it's very, very important that these systems, government has spent a lot of money. The query which was standing on Ministry of Finance is, will it be wasteful expenditure if government is not implementing these revenue collecting modules? After this heavy investment under Smart Zambia, Ministry of Finance, Government Service Bus, which the Minister of Finance talks about all the time in the budget. But if we are not adhering to that or pushing that we collect revenue, as it were, then we are not augmenting, or we are not collaborating as government institutions or ministries, as it were. So that is very important for this committee, and we take it very, very seriously, PS. So those issues we have spoken about, please take them with utmost seriousness, that we look at them. We are one government, but it's important that we ensure that we provide oversight to the executive. So we thank you most sincerely, PS. And the issue of the local authorities, Secretariat to find a day. They need to be written to come and appear and explain. Their town clerks with their director of finances, they should come and tell us why they are not remitting funds, and whoever is involved with collection of ground rents on behalf of the ministry, they should transmit those funds, as it were. It's very, very important. They should not take business as usual. You write to them, they're quiet. No, they should react and give us a position. Actually, I hope your letters are stating how much each local authority is owing the ministry, as it were, so that we can adequately interrogate them. So we thank you so much, PS, and your team. Our role is to help you, not to demean you. So it's very, very important that you understand from that perspective. So we're grateful for your appearance, and we do well together with your team. Thank you so much for coming to the committee, and immunity is lifted. All those who are looking for titles who come with you outside, even part of this committee, they are on their own. Immunity has been lifted. PS. So much.
Television. You're just from watching a live broadcast of the Public Accounts Committee, in which the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, led by the Permanent Secretary, Mr. Patrick Mucheleka, was making a submission before the committee, and that's for the consideration of the report of the Auditor General on the accounts of the Republic for the financial year ended 31st December 2024. And still to make an appearance before the committee is the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. Keep watching Parliament Television, the only station that brings Parliament closer to you.
On Oyo constituency, we profile one of the most prominent constituencies in the country.
The constituency is facing a lot of challenges, but the major ones are, number one, poor road network, communication network, no financial institutions, no colleges, no electricity, and inadequate infrastructure in both education and health.
Bayuti nabo onayika mulandu n'obwalwa n'abaana